The Galactic Council chamber glittered with polished silver arches and translucent walls that pulsed with faint blue light. Delegates from hundreds of species sat in the crescent-shaped assembly, their voices rising and falling like a storm of languages. Today's session was meant to be routine: trade laws, border disputes, the usual arguments over tariffs and wormhole rights. But then, as the agenda scrolled across the massive holographic screen, one line caught the attention of the chamber. Review of Legacy Prohibitions. Article 117. Ban on Humans. Laughter rippled across the room. "They still keep this?" sneered a young delegate from the Varan Dominion, his scales shimmering green as he leaned back lazily in his chair. "Humans, extinct for centuries. Why waste time?" Another joined in, a tall avian with jeweled feathers. "Yes, a ban on ghosts. Perhaps next we ban fairy tales as well." The chamber filled with mocking chuckles, their voices blending into a chorus of ridicule. The law seemed ancient, irrelevant. Humanity had disappeared long ago, swallowed by the tides of history. No one had seen a human in hundreds of cycles. To most, they were nothing more than a cautionary myth told to children. But one figure did not laugh. In the back of the chamber, cloaked in gray, sat archivist Wren Taylor, one of the last keepers of the Council's deep vaults. His eyes, old and sunken, flicked open as he listened. He had heard this laughter before. Every generation it returned, mockery of the law, dismissal of the warnings. And every time he remembered why it had been written. Slowly, he rose. His movement silenced the chamber more effectively than any gavel. Delegates turned, curious, some irritated. "Esteemed Council," Wren said, his voice hoarse yet commanding, "you laugh because you do not understand. The ban on humans is not a relic. It is a shield, a warning carved in law, to remind us of the danger we barely survived." The young delegates scoffed. "Danger? From what? A species that burned itself to ash? You expect us to fear bones and dust?" "Yes," Wren said simply. His gaze hardened. "And no, I do not expect you to fear bones. I expect you to fear what those bones once carried, the will of humanity. You mock them now because you have never seen." The chamber quieted. A murmur spread, half curiosity, half unease. "Seen what?" one delegate asked cautiously. Wren touched. The console before him. The chamber dimmed, the great walls fading to black. A holographic sphere ignited in the center, flickering with static. Then, the past began to play. The first image was a battlefield, planets burning, fleets clashing. In the void, the council chamber gasped as the scale became clear. Vast armadas, larger than any single empire's fleet today, thundered across the screen. And against them, humanity. They were not the strongest. Their ships were not the largest. Yet the footage showed something that chilled the room. Humans fought with a ferocity alien to the council races. Their vessels charged even when outnumbered 10-1. Damaged ships rammed enemy flagships rather than surrender. Soldiers fought on ruined worlds until only ashes remained, their voices screaming defiance even as fire consumed them. The footage shifted, scenes of human leaders standing before their people, faces worn yet burning with determination. "We will not bow. We will not yield. If the stars themselves burn, we will endure." The voices echoed in the chamber, translated into every tongue. A silence fell so heavy it was suffocating. The mocking delegates no longer laughed. Their eyes widened as human fleets cut through enemies far greater than themselves, empires that had since vanished from history. The recordings showed victories snatched from certain defeat, invasions turned into genocidal routes, not by superior numbers but by sheer will. And then came the final sequence, a human fleet, broken and cornered, facing annihilation. Yet instead of retreat, they turned every ship into a weapon. 1,000 suns ignited as humans detonated their own fleets in suicidal defiance, dragging their enemies into fire. Worlds trembled. Empires crumbled. Humanity's last message played across the stars. If we cannot live free, then none shall rule over us. The recording ended. The chamber remained frozen in silence. Even the faint hum of the councils. Systems seemed muted. The avian delegate who had mocked the law moments earlier now shivered, his wings drawn tight against his body. The Varan's green scales dulled, his mouth opening but no words forming. Fear, raw, unfiltered fear, had gripped them all. Ren let the silence linger before he spoke again. Do you see now? The ban was not superstition. It was survival. Humanity was not destroyed by others. They destroyed themselves and all who sought to master them. Their spirit is a fire that consumes not only enemies, but themselves as well. That is why they were banned. Not because they were weak, but because they were too strong. The council chamber trembled with the weight of his words. Are they truly extinct? A trembling voice asked. Ren's gaze fell upon the speaker. His answer came slowly, deliberately. Perhaps, perhaps not. Some records hint at fragments, survivors scattered, hidden. If they yet endure, it is only because they choose to remain unseen. The chamber filled with whispers, panic woven through every tone. The delegates who mocked now looked over their shoulders, as if shadows themselves might carry the ghost of humanity. Ren closed his console, the hologram vanishing into darkness. Mock the law if you wish, he said, turning to leave. But know this, if ever the humans return, the galaxy will not laugh. It will burn. And with that, the archivist walked away, leaving behind a silence more terrifying than any laughter. The ban on humans was never mocked again. The High Court of the Galactic Council was a place of solemnity, draped in silver banners and lined with crystalline walls that shimmered with shifting light. Here, the galaxy's greatest crimes were judged, and today, all eyes were upon the young prince of the Zarenth Dominion. He stood tall at the center, arrogance painted across every angle of his golden-scaled face. Chains of light bound his arms, though he bore them like ornaments. The charge against him was clear: violation of the ancient ban on humans. Prince Kael of Zarenth, the Grand Arbiter intoned, her voice echoing across the hall. You stand, accused of trespassing upon Earth's ruins, dispatching expeditions into forbidden territory, and mocking laws set down for the safety of all species. How do you plead? Kael smirked. I plead guilty of curiosity. His voice was sharp, mocking. This ban is a joke. Why should we fear dust and ruins? The humans are gone, extinct, if they ever mattered at all. The chamber stirred with whispers. Some nodded in agreement. Youthful delegates who also believed the ban to be outdated superstition. Others looked uneasy, remembering whispers told in shadowed archives. Kael's laughter cut through the murmurs. The council fears bones. It fears myths. I say the humans were overrated. Their extinction proves it. Gasps rose. To insult humanity so openly in the council chamber was dangerous, even reckless. Yet Kael stood proud, his jeweled armor catching the light. The Grand Arbiter's eyes narrowed. You speak of what you do not know. The law exists not as superstition, but as memory. If you doubt it, then let the truth be shown. She raised a hand. The chamber dimmed. At the heart of the hall, a colossal projector hummed to life. The air trembled as ancient files unlocked. Files sealed for centuries. Kael scoffed. More theatrics. But then the footage began. The first scene erupted in fire. Fleets clashed in the void, ships vast as mountains colliding, weapons blazing with sun's fury, yet all eyes were drawn to one side, the human fleet, smaller, older, less advanced, but they moved with a precision, a fury, that no other species displayed. Human ships did not retreat. Even as they broke apart, they rammed into enemy lines, detonating reactors to take foes with them. Soldiers fought on the ground until worlds bled, charging enemy fortresses with nothing but rifles, knives, and bare hands when ammunition ran dry. The chamber watched in stunned silence. Kyle's smirk faded. The footage shifted, human leaders rallying their people. Voices, translated across 100 tongues, echoed in the court. "We will not kneel. We will not yield. The stars belong to no one but those who fight for them." The words carried weight beyond translation. They carried defiance, fire. An iron-will Kale tried to laugh, but the sound caught in his throat as the recordings grew darker. Images of humans annihilating fleets 10 times their size, armies of allies deserting them, only for humanity to continue alone, still winning. Even in defeat, they made their enemies bleed so terribly that victory felt like loss. Then came the final sequence, a last stand on a dying world, the human fleet, surrounded and broken. Their commander gave one last order, his eyes burning with fury. "If we cannot live free, then we will drag tyrants to the grave with us." And with that, thousands of human ships detonated in unison, tearing apart an enemy empire so vast that the Council once believed it eternal. Firestorms consumed the stars. Silence followed. The footage ended. The chamber sat frozen. No one dared move. No one dared breathe. Kyle, who had mocked, who had sneered, now stood pale, his confidence shattered. His chains seemed heavier. His voice broke as he whispered, This is real?" The Grand Arbiter's gaze fell upon him, sharp as a blade. Yes. Real enough that empires died. Real enough that the Council swore never again. Humanity was not erased by weakness. They erased themselves, and those who dared to dominate them. That is why the ban was written. Kyle trembled. He had mocked legends, but legends had answered with fire. A voice from the gallery broke the silence. "But are they truly gone?" The Arbiter did not answer immediately. Her eyes flickered with something unreadable. At last she said, "Some records speak of survivors, scattered fleets, colonies hidden beyond mapped space. Perhaps they are dust. Perhaps they are waiting." The hall erupted in fearful whispers. The very thought that humans might endure, that the galaxy's most dangerous species could return, sent chills through every delegate. Kale fell to his knees. The arrogance was gone, replaced by fear. I didn't know," he whispered. The Arbiter's voice thundered through the chamber. "And that ignorance is why the ban remains. You have mocked it. You have endangered us all. The galaxy does not laugh at humanity, Prince Kyle. The galaxy survives by remembering them." The trial ended not with laughter, but with silence so heavy it seemed carved into stone. And long after Kyle was led away, the delegates sat frozen, the final human words echoing in their minds, "If you see us again, run." And on humans, the towering insectoid, delegate of the Kier Republic, clicked his mandibles with amusement. "Humans? A ban on humans? Surely, my friends, we can end this farce. They are extinct. Their worlds are dust. Why keep such outdated nonsense?" A reptilian dignitary hissed. In agreement, his scaled tail swaying lazily. Yes. Why do we cling to childish fears? The humans burned themselves away long ago. To fear them now is to fear shadows. The laughter spread, a ripple of arrogance flowing across the chamber. Younger delegates joined in, scoffing at the absurdity of honoring such an ancient prohibition. But at the edge of the assembly, one figure did not laugh. Ambassador Drell Varys, an elder whose skin was pale with age, leaned heavily on his staff. His voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "You laugh because you have never seen. You mock because you do not remember. The chamber quieted. A few chuckles lingered, but unease began to creep in. Drell's eyes swept across the Senate. You believe the ban was written out of superstition. You believe humanity was weak, but I was raised on the border worlds where the ruins still whisper. My people carried fragments of what was hidden, fragments of the last broadcast. Hush fell. The reptilian delegate scoffed nervously. Stories, nothing more. No, Drell said, his voice heavy with certainty. Not stories. Records. He raised a trembling hand and activated the device he had carried for decades. The Mao. Chamber dimmed. The laughter died, and then the broadcast began. The hologram unfolded in the center of the Senate, a human fleet, battered and burning yet unbroken. Ships limped through the void, scarred from endless battles. Their enemies, vast armadas of alien empires, closed in on every side. The Senate watched in silence as the humans fought. They did not surrender. Even crippled vessels turned themselves into weapons, slamming into enemy flagships in suicidal defiance. Ground troops, bloodied and outnumbered, fought to the last breath, wielding broken weapons, fists, even stones when all else failed. Gasps echoed across the chamber. For every alien victory, the footage revealed the same truth. Victory against humans was never clean. Their enemies paid in oceans of blood for every inch of ground. Then came the final moments. A human commander appeared. His uniform torn, his face lined with exhaustion yet burning with fire. His voice thundered through the chamber, translated across every language. We are the last. Our worlds burn. Our fleets fall. But hear this, we will not kneel. Not now. Not ever. If the stars themselves must shatter, then we will take our enemies with us. And then it happened. The broadcast showed the humans' last act. Their entire fleet, thousands of ships, detonated in unison. A chain of fire consumed the enemy armadas, collapsing suns, tearing space itself. The galaxy's strongest empire of the age was annihilated in one night of fire. The Senate chamber shook with the echoes of the blast, though it was only memory. The broadcast flickered, revealing its final words. A simple human message etched into the signal as the fleet died. If you see us again, run. The chamber went dead silent. Not a word, not a breath. Delegates who had laughed moments ago now sat frozen, eyes wide, bodies trembling. The insectoid delegate's mandibles clicked, nervously. The reptilian dignitary's tail had stilled entirely. Even the younger ones, so quick to mock, now stared in horror. Ambassador Drell closed the device. Darkness returned to the chamber. You call the ban superstition, he said quietly. But it is not fear of what humans were. It is fear of what they are. A species that cannot be broken. A fire that consumes all, even itself. They do not conquer because they desire power. They conquer because they refuse to be ruled. His voice grew colder. Do you understand now why the ban was written? Not to protect humans from us, but to protect us from them. The silence deepened. Some delegates shifted uneasily, others bowed their heads. Finally, a trembling voice asked the question hanging in every mind. Ambassador, are they gone? Truly gone? Drell's eyes glimmered with something between sorrow and dread. No, he said softly. The signal I showed you, it did not end centuries ago. It was found only 50 years past. Buried in deep space, still transmitting, still echoing. It was meant to be heard. It was meant to remind us. Humanity is not gone. Humanity waits. A wave of whispers, sharp with fear, spread like wildfire across the chamber. The Senate, so full of mocking laughter an hour ago, now trembled like prey hearing the approach of a predator. The Grand Speaker, his voice barely steady, struck the gavel. This session, This session is ended. But long after the delegates dispersed, silence lingered in the great chamber, haunted by the last human words. We will not bow. Not now. Not ever.